Now for the setup that I am most excited to talk to you. Now for the setup that I am most excited to talk to you about. This has been an absolute crowd pleaser. Clients love it. It is ethereal. It is beautiful. It is the softest light we have, and we're still only using one light. We want to find a way to do a backlight setup that's super easy. The kind of origin of this is when natural light photographers would photograph a subject with a beautiful big window behind them and get that kind of light glowing from behind very ethereally. And when you do this with artificial light, you no longer have the restriction of your window being so fixed in place, and you can do a backlight setup with your modifier really anywhere. So what we have is I've got the same modifier that I've already had built, which is the 100 centimeter deep dish Rotalux by Elinchrom, and I'm using it not because of any specific reason other than the fact that I'm kind of lazy and we already got it built, so we might as well use it. That's the reality of a fast-paced shoot. If I'm trying to do another lighting setup, I'll just grab whatever modifier we've already got built. So to start building this, I'm going to talk you through kind of some of the pitfalls of this setup. I've got the modifier set up behind the subject, behind the backdrop. I'm using the same backdrop that I love so much. This is an Oliphant backdrop, sort of cream color, really beautiful right here. So I'm going to bring in Jenna, our lovely model. She's had her hair done in an updo, very nice, should be nice and ethereal. Just wearing this fun little dress. Perfect. I'll have you stand in the middle right there. Perfect. Good. And as always, I'm just going to start wherever we are. I don't know what the power of the light is, and I'm going to see what happens here. Before I do that, actually, let me do my ambient light test just to be, a good instructor here. Take the picture. There we go. We have very, very little of the light from the environment. I think that's going to be doable for me. And then I'll take a test shot with my camera on. I'm at 200th of a second shutter speed, I'm at 5.6 on my aperture, 200 ISO. Right, so I've not set the light at any particular power. I think we probably need a little bit more light. I'm not even getting a sort of a light from behind her called a rim light. So let me turn, I'm going to turn the power up by pressing this button 10 times. I think I did it 10 times. That should double the amount of light coming out of my light. Some remotes have a button to turn it up. Again, if it's too bright, turn it down. If it's too dark, turn it up. I'm just going to keep coming up on my power. Lovely. And one more time. And obviously, I'm not getting any light on the face. Now, you all have watched the One Light video by now, surely. So you know what I'm going to do is I've got this light pointed almost directly kind of here. So we're wasting the central column of the light by pointing it right here. Some people make the mistake of having the light when they're trying to do this ethereal backlight setup by having the light directly behind the model. If you've watched the One Light video by now, you know if we do that, we can't feather it to bounce it back. Right now we have it at a little bit of an angle. So I think it's pointed like directly right here. She's catching some of the edge of that light, and that gives us the opportunity to put a V-flat on the opposite side to bounce it back at our subject because we've already placed the light over to the side. So before I do that, there's a couple of other issues I want to point out with this. Do you see on this picture here that we've just taken, you see every little wrinkle in the backdrop. Every imperfection is shown. Now, the reason that is because we set this up wrong on purpose, so I can show you. If you have that happen, it happens with paper drops, it happens with seamless, it happens with canvas. The backdrop, the light is extending over the top of the backdrop, thereby it has a direct line of sight showing all the wrinkles in the backdrop. So the easy solution is just, I'm going to move this light, I'm going to step behind here. I'm going to move the light so that it is not directly lighting down on that backdrop. And I'm going to have Magnus help me just angle it up a little bit so that we're not just lighting completely the back of the backdrop. Perfect. So now I want to take a test shot while Magnus is doing that. It shouldn't show that, oh, he just dropped it down. I'll give you a second to put that in place. When we take that shot, there we go, it should no longer be lighting directly. I'll show you the comparison. Should no longer be lighting directly the backdrop here, so you don't get any of that texture. That's actually a crazy difference between those two. So that's our first step. And then if you remember watching the One Light video, we're going to bring in a V-flat and place it right here, right where this light is going to catch. So if I can have that, actually it's right here, I'll grab it. Thank you so much. I want to catch that and build that right here. Good, let me take a test shot with that. Beautiful, and I'm already starting to get a bit of the light coming back. Let me do another test shot. It's coming over her shoulder. It's probably not catching enough of the light. I'm going to check the direction of it, bring this in a little bit closer to her. So we've got this surface pointed at her to catch the light coming from that light and bouncing back onto our subject, just lighting that and catching the light. Now, because you've all watched the One Light video already, or if you haven't, you should probably refer back to it, you know exactly that we're catching this light. She's actually on the edge of that light where, you know, the water spray idea is just highlighting the back of her head, and some of it is bouncing back onto her. But it's still too dark. There's still not enough power. So I'm again going to turn up the light by pressing here a bunch of times. I'm not even doing it in a very scientific way. I'm just going to keep pressing the button on here until we start getting the right exposure. If it's too dark, I turn it up. Very simple. I'm going to keep bringing it up, and we keep going with that. And you see how it starts to just become so beautiful, so ethereal. Oh my God, there we go. Voila. That's a One Light setup. Isn't that crazy? So you've got most of the light coming over the shoulder on her right and then bouncing back. I mean, I don't think anything could be simpler. If you have any trouble with perhaps understanding what's happening here, go back to the One Light video. All we're doing is we've got the column of light coming and coming out of this modifier onto this V-flat here, bouncing back onto our subject. Now, it's halfway over the backdrop, so I'm going to have Magnus just bring it up even higher. Let's see if we can catch more of it. So there we go. More of it should now, that brings the exposure up just a touch. So we're using, you know, if we think about our example under the tree, we're actually using the sun to our advantage, and the bounce surface is filling in all the beautiful kind of soft light from the front. Very, very simple. And I'm going to just take this one little step further. I'll have another V-flat brought in, and maybe we could even do a smaller one, a folding one. Do we have a V-flat world V-flat? We can bring in. Lovely. Oh, yes. And it's not as tall, but it's what we have already built. We'll stick that right here. I got it. And we're going to catch the light from the opposite side, like that. So we again, the funny thing is, remember the small spaces video? We are now again making a small space, just using our giant bounce surfaces to use one light to create one beam of light and then bringing it back onto our subject really softly from all these bounce surfaces. So let me just show you real quick what the bounce surface is. Actually, I'll do a little picture of where we're at here. Now we have the two V-flats bouncing onto her. Beautiful. You see how much that lit up just by having that bounce come in from the other side? It's absolutely beautiful, creates such an ethereal look, and it's so dead simple. So I think you'll be able to see this in the overhead view. I've got the light coming in from over here, bouncing into this, lighting her, and then when we added this, some more of the light is bouncing from the side. Of course, if I had my way, physics wasn't a thing, I would have bounce surfaces all around, maybe shoot through a tiny little gap or a little window, but this will work. I can shoot through this gap, and it's really beautiful and ethereal. So I'm just going to take a picture of this bounce surface here. If I can get it to focus. Perfect. Jenna's having a great time. Lovely. And one of this bounce surface, and you can see the quality of light that's bouncing back, filling in on both sides of her. Again, this is a one light setup. You could never, ever manufacture a modifier that has this quality of light, bringing light back onto your subject so beautifully from that one modifier. Like, you couldn't make an LED panel that does this. It's so much nicer. And these large bounce surfaces, just like when you step out of the hard light from the sun under the tree, is the most beautiful fill. From here, let's just shoot a bunch of this. And I'm going to shoot fairly quickly, and we run into the next problem. Good. Thank you, Jenna. This is exactly the vibe we're looking for. Here you can see I'm missing frames. As I'm shooting, because I've turned my light, doesn't matter which light it is, in this case it's the Elinchrom 5, it's a great light. But physics means I've got the light turned up almost to full power. And I want to just go and show you a little water demonstration to take that water metaphor to the next logical place and show you what is happening in the light as we're going through this. As I'm shooting this, the unit is maxed out on power, and it has a refresh rate, and I'll show you how that works with water right now. Let me show you, using our water example, exactly what happens in the unit when you press the shutter and the flash goes off. So I'm going to show you, in the pack, you have an electric supply. So it's either when you have it plugged into the mains or the energy coming from the battery. It flows into something called a capacitor. All the capacitor is doing, it's acting like a battery that can discharge a lot of electric very, very quickly. So the battery in every flash unit is really charging the capacitor, and you have a refresh rate, and that just refers to how long does it take for the battery to put the full capability of what the unit is capable of into the capacitor, so you can have a flash at maximum power. So our water is going to represent the electric supply, so either coming from the battery or from the mains, and this is going to represent the capacitor. So it takes a certain amount of time for the capacitor to be full so that you can use the flash at its full power. So let's say that's 1.5 seconds, and then you press the shutter, the flash fires at full power, and you'll need to wait again for the flash to fully load the capacitor with electricity before you can hit the shutter again. This is a little slower than what happens in real life, but this quality, or the speed of this, is different for every pack or every light that you use, and you can look up the refresh rate of each light online. So if you take this light from its full power down by a stop, you're halving the amount of light that you need to get the same effect. So you can fire the flash at the power you require much quicker, because you only need to wait for the capacitor to fill up to about half. But there's another magic thing that happens. Let's say we bring the capacitor we give it the 1.5 seconds or whatever, and it's full, but you're only using 1 stop below maximum power. So you can fire the flash twice in that same time period before you need to wait for it to refresh. So then if you brought it down another stop from maximum power, then you can get in 4 frames, 3, 4, before you need to wait for it to recharge. And depending on the speed, you might actually, of your recharge in the light, and the more expensive lights have usually faster refresh time, you might have enough electric supply that as you're shooting, you don't even need to wait for the capacitor at all, because the amount of electricity coming in is fast enough to recharge your capacitor quickly. So that's why I like to shoot not at the full power of the pack, because I always have to wait for the pack to recharge. And it's why sometimes I'll jack up my ISO a little bit so that I don't have to use my lights at such full power. So that's a very simple explanation of how a capacitor works inside a flash unit, using water as an example or as a stand-in for electricity to supply. So when you're shooting very quickly, there's different modes that different lights have, but that's the basic concept. Some of them will let you shoot even though the capacitor hasn't fully recharged, and then you get like slightly lower flash output, and that's different settings you can adjust in your light. But that's why sometimes you have to wait between flashes. And what you're really getting from the more expensive flash units, for example, the ELB 500, I hardly ever use it at full power. If I use it 2 stops below full power, I know that the battery is going to give enough flow of electricity to the capacitor that I really don't have to have a very slow shooting speed. I still can't shoot at 20 frames per second, but I can shoot at a fairly good pace, which becomes important if you're photographing maybe a dancer or children where you really want to catch those moments in between. So you can see every time I'm taking a shot, I'm maxed out pretty much on the power of the light. So it means I would like to be shooting at this speed, you know, like click, 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 capture that movement, but the light is only able to refresh every second or third shot because I'm shooting too fast. That's just a limitation of physics. There's several solutions to this. You know, your less expensive lights are going to be great, but the limitation you have is you maybe can't shoot as fast. Or there's like some of my battery packs. They're not the most powerful because they have to run on battery, but they're so light. So every time you either have a light unit or a cheap unit, you might not be able to get the refresh rate as fast. It's not a problem. You don't need to go out and run and buy the next biggest thing or a giant light. It's just something to be aware of. Okay, so I'm going to slow my shooting speed down. And you know, if you're photographing children, this is when you're going to start to notice that. There's another little trick we can do. Remember in the beginning at the One Light video, I mentioned that most manufacturers make their diffusion layers one stop, which means they cut half the amount of light from your modifier. So I'm going to have Magnus climb up on the ladder behind the modifier, and we're going to give ourselves, remember we had that water demonstration, we're going to give ourselves double the shooting speed by just getting rid of one layer of diffusion. So when we have the diffusion on, it cuts half the amount of light. When we take it off, we get that half the amount of light back. So we can theoretically, shoot at double the speed, getting the same result. That's a little trick I use all the time. See how bright that is? I mean, it's still beautiful. It's actually really beautiful, Jenna, but it is a little bit too bright. So I can turn the light back down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when I do that, my glass, I have more of those pores that I can do with the same length of time while it's refilling, and my refresh rate improves to double the speed, which we are seeing as we're shooting here, and it's absolutely beautiful. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat a little bit. It's probably underexposed by about 1/4 of a stop, but I want to shoot at this speed. I don't have much more I can go. If I want to shoot at this speed, you know, I've maxed out my capacitor. My battery can't, my light can't refresh charging fast enough. So I'm going to stay at this slightly underexposed, and I can just bring it up in Capture One on my computer. If I don't do that, I would have to change my ISO. That's one of the ways I could do this. Here's the problem. As soon as I open up my ISO, I'm going to show you right now, I'm going to go to, let's say I go to 640 ISO, and I do my ambient light test, I'm suddenly getting so much ambient light. So you're running into kind of everywhere you go, you have a little bit of a different situation. So I'm going to stick with my ISO 200. I've just taken the front diffusion layer off, giving myself double the shooting speed, half the refresh time on my lights. It's a kind of a neat trick. Don't worry if you don't want to get into that. It's totally fine. You just will notice that you have to wait a little bit between shots for the light to refresh. Good. I like this so much. You know, from here, there's not much else I would change. We're actually in a really good place right out of the box. I just want to point out the off-center positioning, the slight angle towards this V-flat allows us to catch it. And then you also saw what happened when we brought in the second V-flat. Now, the second V-flat we can also position like we did in the One Light video and in the small spaces. We could bring this bounce layer or this bounce surface further away to have a little bit less light filling in from that side. Let's try what that looks like. Lovely. Also has a vibe. And I'll have Magnus just come in on this side, and we're just going to move this in a few inches at a time, this V-flat, and just see on the camera how that affects things. Yeah, do it from the other side so you can, yeah, perfect. Good. So we're here. Good. Come in a little bit. Yeah, we come a little closer, a little closer, a little closer, a little closer. Perfect. And it gets, yeah, now we're in, but it starts to get really like much more even. So both of these, if you have the space, you can bring them in further or have them further away, and you can control how much light you're getting from each side. Now, we are again sort of in a small space. Yes, you need height. If you don't have the height for this, Magnus, you can put it back to where we were originally. If you don't have the height for this, go ahead to the next video, because I'm going to show you a little trick that makes this doable even in smaller spaces. But this is really lovely, so I'm just going to shoot a little bit with this. I love this whole vibe. We can do a little, do you dance? Like, yeah, perfect. So I'm just going to have Jenna, she is also a dancer just by luck, do a little bit of movement and just find a place where she's vibing here. And again, I'm shooting a little bit slowly, because if I shoot too fast, my refresh doesn't happen the way I want it on my light. Perfect. Beautiful. That's great. Yeah, and I think the hands up moment is really nice, Jenna. Yeah. Great. Yeah, it's really beautiful. And actually, if we find, like, come this way a little bit. Yeah, this way, tiny bit, split the difference. Come towards me. Yeah, perfect. Let's see how that is there. I've moved her now closer to those bounce surfaces. I think that's also really beautiful. Let's just do some static moments where you're like dreamy with your hands up above. Yeah, beautiful. Good. Give me like eyes straight on the camera, really dramatic. Yeah. I feel like there's like a Spanish dancer kind of feeling here, right? Bring the arms a little bit back behind your head so that, yeah, you're not covering your face. Yeah, perfect. Beautiful. And again, we could come in with a bounce board or a negative fill. If I take this V-flat away, like we had at the beginning, the one on the right, if it's not there at all, that's like negative fill. There's no bounce coming back from that side at all. Good. I want to show you one other thing. If I have Magnus bring in a flag again, or that board that we had, a white and black board. It was right behind here, no? Okay, it's crossing. Perfect. And I'm going to show you how it looks when we cut the hard part of the light. So I'm going to stick that. Just hang over here, Magnus. Perfect. I'm going to stick that right over here. So I'm going to cut it just from her, but I'm not going to cut it from the bounce surfaces. So we're going to see just how those two layers separately work together. Perfect. I think it's still going to be really nice because it's going to be really soft, but we're going to lose some of that highlight. Bring the arms down for me, Jenna. Yeah, perfect. Maybe even on the hips. Yeah, exactly. A little dance moment. Beautiful. And that's also super flattering. And this actually is kind of a little preview into how fantastically beautiful and versatile this setup is. So Magnus, just take it out for a second again. Yeah. Perfect. Good. And let's show you how using negative fill, now you have this beautiful world. We could have negative fill on her right. Magnus, camera right. Sorry, camera right. This side. Yeah. Really could even shape the face. And we're just going to keep the face pointed to me. Perfect. Yeah, do it on the other side. So you have this space that you've built, and it's just gorgeous. You can just anytime you use your bounce surfaces in different ways, anytime you set this up in your space, it just becomes more and more beautiful. This is such a, thank you, Magnus. This is such a powerful setup that more than anything I've ever taught, I just come back to this. It's simple. You put a light over the backdrop. It's absolutely ethereal. It's completely flattering for everyone, and it's so reliable, and I'm going to show you another variation now. So this is the light that I had over the back of the backdrop. It was convenient because I had it already built, so we used it for that last segment to make that beautiful light. And there's actually a simpler way. So I'm going to show you, it was just in here. And remember, I was kind of maxed out on the power, shooting too fast, and it didn't have time to refresh. So I'm going to take this off here. This is the Elinchrom 5. It's a battery-operated light. This is the battery. And it has about 500 watts. Now, before your eyes glaze over, because I'm not an electrician either, it doesn't matter. It's just that 500 is half of, don't want to break my lights, half of 1,000, which is this unit, which is the ELC 1000. So I'm swapping this out because I would like to be able to shoot twice as fast at the same settings. This can put out 1,000, this is a technical thing, 1,000 watt seconds per second. I think that's 1,000 watt seconds. And that one can put out 500 watt seconds, so I've doubled the amount of power. The number isn't really relevant. The way it applies for you is that you'll want to be taking the light that's the most powerful so you can shoot fastest. If you don't have the light that's powerful like this, that's totally fine. You're just going to have to shoot a little bit slower, and it is worth it because this setup is absolutely beautiful. So we're going to perform a magic trick now. We're going to transform our world. Magnus is going to come and help me with this. If you could hold that, please. We're going to take this modifier off the stand. I'll just stick that over here for now. And we stick this on the light stand instead. I'm going to perform a magic trick. I'll do it here. Thank you. It's, we're going to attach it here to the stand. Lovely. And this has, as similar to what I showed in the One Light video, again, it's on a C-stand with a sandbag, safety first. And we're going to, it's got the bulb here. And I'm just going to take off the reflector dish, and it's a similar idea to what I showed you in the One Light video. We have a bulb. This would be spreading everywhere when we put the reflector dish on, just like so. And I'm going to lock it in place. It just allows us to give that light a direction rather than going all over the place. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to place this right here in the corner. Let's see how that feels. Pretty much everyone has a corner, I think. If your ceilings are lower, you can't have the backdrop as high because you'll want some of this light coming over the top. And this will end up needing to be plugged in. But I'm going to place it. Magnus is going to come help me get this plugged in. Actually, we'll do that first. Just give me the cord, please. And what's going to happen here is this is going to, we're going to make a modifier out of our environment. Can I have that piece? I'll plug that in. Perfect. And this one doesn't have a battery because it's actually almost impossible nowadays to get a battery pack that is as powerful as this. You have to have the plug-in units. It's a very annoying part of the photography industry, but it is what it is. Again, you don't have to have this much power, but you're going to have to make some compromises because you can't shoot as fast. So I'm going to have this. Again, this is going to be the only light we're using, and I'm just going to point this into this corner, and we're going to try to create the same effect where the light is coming over the top here. We can get rid of this, and where the light's coming over the top here, we're going to catch it again with the V-flat and bounce back onto our model. And the nice thing is, you don't even need a modifier. So let's see how that feels right now. I'm going to show you on the wall what we've created. Again, I'm going to do my ambient light test. So I'm at 200 ISO, 200th of a second on my shutter speed. I'm at 5.6. I'm going to take a shot. Almost no ambient light. There's a little bit, but I think for our purposes, that's going to be fine. I won't tell anyone if you don't. Then I turn on my trigger, and it should fire that light alone. Okay, let's see what that creates there in the corner. It's going to be very bright. So let me turn it down a little bit so you can see what effect it's having. So it's creating a modifier in that corner there that's about that size, right? So it's about from here all the way across to here. I would say that's 8-9 feet, about 3 meters. If you had to bring a modifier that big, you're going to be bringing a giant, expensive modifier. But here, we're just using the corner. In my studio at home, I actually use the corner. I bounce this. I use the corner that has all backdrop standing up in it. It's a big, messy corner. I rent, so there's a little moisture issue in the corner of my studio from the outside wall. Even some of the paint is peeling off. So you do not have to have some perfectly newly painted white glossy corner. The more interest is in the back there. I've got, backdrop standing up, paint peeling off. It's fine. So we've made a modifier that's really big. So the area of that light, if you imagine it now, this is bouncing back at us, coming from a much bigger area as it comes over the top of the backdrop. Rather than being this 100 centimeter dish that we have, we've now got a giant, beautiful soft light coming over the top. Because the light has a little bit further to travel, right, and it spreads out a little bit further, we might lose some of that power. But let's see, we'll bring in Jenna, our model, and see how that looks once she's on set. Let's bring in Jenna, who we've put in a bridal gown for this, because this ethereal feeling, it just kind of works so well with bridal. Wow, she's just glowing and floating in. Perfect. I'll have you right here in the middle of that backdrop. Good. And just like we did before, let's see where we're at on this. Come this way a little bit, Jenna. Perfect. And lovely. I can already see that is going to be absolutely gorgeous when I bring in my bounce surface on this side. I just want to have a look and see kind of if we can analyze the light a little bit. So I'll do a wide shot so we can see what's going on up in that corner. There we go. Lovely. So we've got a really large modifier. If you have, in this studio, we are blessed with very tall ceilings. If you have a lower ceiling, you're going to obviously have some of that light bouncing back from the top. But every studio is different. In my studio, my home studio in New York, I have 10.5-foot ceilings. We do get a little bit light bouncing off the top, but every situation is going to be different when you're trying this setup. But I just want to get you to understand, or get you to try this out where you're bouncing a light into the corner. If you have a small studio, we've done this also. You just bring it into a corner a little bit closer to the model, like you would probably end up about maybe even here. And actually, I want to try this. Maybe just like that, and we can have some of it bounce off the backdrop. We might get a little warm highlight, a light highlight. Let's see. Oh, that's kind of pretty also, right? So if we go wide here, that probably approximates something similar to what you'd have in a smaller space. So let's see how that feels when we bring in our V-flat into the same position as we had it before. And we're in this magic. Take a tiny step this way. Perfect. Yeah, let's just see. It's not exactly where it was before, but let's just see where it's at. So let's just see. Good. We probably need a little bit more bounce off back on her. Yeah, and I'm also seeing a line across the image right here where there's like a hard edge. So to analyze that, I'm just going to go and have a look and see what I can see if I go here. Ah, I see. So what I'm seeing as I go and have a look in that